you can see just this year that even at college level, young adults can be made fun of or taunted for being gay and feel so bad about themselves and commit suicide or harm themselves. Some say they might not be homophobic, but will still say, I'll be friends with a gay person as long as they don't get any ideas. Also, not to sound like I'm gay bashing, even myself have grown up with a lesbian sister and recently found out I have another lesbian in the family. I was like, what the hell? But it didn't change the way I love them for who they are.
I often fear that if we don't take these issues a lot more seriously, history can repeat itself and we could face another genocide, except it could be African Americans, not people of Jewish descent. We could face segregation again, but instead of it only being a black and white thing, it could be segregation of all races. Water fountains and bathrooms could be labeled for black, white, Hispanics, and Indians. What would that be like? Obviously, there are laws and regulations that would hopefully prevent these things from occurring again, but the chances are still there.
Basically, and all I'm saying that we as Americans have come a long way from trying to understand one another and be a more diverse society. But for it, people have fought and even died and dreamed for a more perfect country. We as the world, though, have a long way to go and will definitely never see eye to eye on a lot of things. If we take things slow, I believe we can better ourselves as people for change. The word perfect will never be used to describe the world, but we can strive for the best.
The picture is all about people and the different types of people we have all over this world. The big picture is we will never move forward in this world from the same racial, financial, and emotional problems we have been dealing with since the beginning of time, so every person understands the lifestyles of those who differ from them. Though we have made leaps and bounds from the times of Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, we could very easily revert back to what was once alive and thriving. In conclusion, my wish for the world is for all to be successful, without race, class, or gender having anything to do with it. The only things that should matter are the work ethic, loyalty, and enthusiasm of the individual. Every physical difference should be invisible.
I'm Alyssa, and this is me.
I am Lauren, and this is me.
Society has changed so much over the past couple hundred years. We have made so many improvements in our judgments towards others and how they are treated. But even now, I don't believe society is at the tolerance level I feel it should be at by now. Be that it may, I still have high hopes for what the future can hold for society.
The big picture here in the United States of America is changing perhaps more than it ever has in our country's history so far, certainly more than it has in mine or my parents' lifetimes.
We've evolved greatly from those before us. In the past, society has been very intolerant of those whom were considered to be different. Whether you were black, Jewish, or even a woman, you were seen as a problem in society's eyes. African Americans were enslaved by our own forefathers and used to pick crops in fields. Women were forbidden to go to college because they were seen as not as intelligent as men, and besides, a woman's place is in the kitchen. One of the biggest examples of hatred of others that sticks out in my mind the most is, of course, the Holocaust. Adolf Hitler killed millions of people, solely because they were of the Jewish religion. Try to imagine living in a time like this and having someone come into your own home and killing you just for believing in your religion.
Our society is waking up from a long sleep that was induced by the post-industrial revolution, post-World War II prosperity, the security of the unions, and the safety net of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's social programs, to find that the warning bells in the 1960s, 70s, and early 80s should have been heeded when they were first sounded. From the need to reduce and eventually end dependence on oil for the good of our economy and our environment, to Ronald Reagan's caveats regarding the finite nature of Social Security and too large government, to the middle class's overdependence on unions for generous wages and benefits. It seems that today, the decades of underheated warnings that the comforts of the last half of the 20th century were not sustainable have caused an explosion that now borders an out-and-out revolution.
Right now, it seems like we have taken some pretty big steps in having a just society. Women can vote, black and white children can go to the same schools, and we can practice our religion without being persecuted, but we still don't have it down packed just yet. A female Indian doctor cannot buy a home in a decent neighborhood because she will bring down the neighborhood's property value because of her skin color. A young homosexual teen boy fears going to school, for when he arrives, he will be taunted and bullied for his sexuality. Society had let him down so many times before that he had lost all faith in getting help from others, so he ends his own life. These are events that happen every day in our society and will probably continue to happen unless we change our narrow-minded ways.
Our party system is being historically altered by the people. Republicans and conservatives who have been called to battle by a new breed of president who triumphantly entered office with the vast majority of lawmakers firmly on his side have taken to the streets, the airwaves, and the internet to form the Tea Party, a new and surprisingly effective party determined to topple big government and bring self-sufficiency back to the masses, or perhaps to force self-sufficiency on the masses with a small government survival of the fittest philosophy.
As for the future, I hope we will become more open-minded society. A woman should be able to work the same job as a man and get paid the same salary. A woman should be able to marry the woman she loves anywhere in the United States, and they should be able to adopt children. A child from a lower-class income family should have the same educational opportunities as a child from an upper-class income family. Finally, a black man should be able to speak his mind openly without having to represent his entire race. I know this may seem like a lot to ask for, but I think with a little more knowledge, compassion, and time to those to whom you condemn, we can make all this happen and more in the near future.
Our largely unknown and inexperienced president inadvertently served as the match that has lit the flame under the Tea Party's boiling mad kettle. Not since the 1960s has this country seen citizens taking to the streets in anti-administration protests that pack the power and influence of Tea Party-based events. The proof of this tea-induced awakening was illustrated by the results of the elections earlier last month. On the flip side, communist and socialist-based advocates of the United States have just about rendered the Democratic Party obsolete. That is certainly the opinion voiced by the Tea Party portion of the media. Recent meetings of communist and socialist enthusiasts have attracted much attention from citizens and the press. The message of reviving and strengthening labor unions, re-empowering workers, and speaking out against racism and sexism in all of their forms is becoming louder than ever, thanks to communists and socialists in the United States. They are rallying like the like-minded masses, calling for out-and-out revolution if their brand of reason isn't paid attention to. As the Republican and Democratic parties give way to the Tea Party and the resurgence of the Communist Party in the mainstream, it will be more than exciting to witness firsthand the history of our nation being repainted in this new century. It seems that the youth of America, spurred by the internet age and a president with a liberal, take-no-prisoners philosophy, have reignited the revolutionary spirit of both the right and the left.
I'm Nia, and this is Peggy. Through work to bring materials from women's studies into the rest of the curriculum, I've often noticed men's unwillingness to grant that they are overprivileged, even though they grant that women are disadvantaged. They may say they will work to improve women's status in the society, the university, or the curriculum. They can't or won't support the idea of lessening men's. Denials, which amount to taboos, surround the subject of advantages which men gain from women's disadvantages. These denials protect male privilege from being fully acknowledged, lessened, or ended. Thinking through unacknowledged male privilege as a phenomenon, I realized that since hierarchies in our society are interlocking, there was most likely a phenomenon of white privilege, which was similarly denied and protected. As a white person, I realized I had been taught about racism as something which puts others at a disadvantage, but had been taught not to see one of its corollary aspects, white privilege, which puts me at an advantage. I think whites are carefully taught not to recognize white privilege, as males are taught not to recognize male privilege. So I have begun in an untutored way to ask what it is like to have white privilege. I have come to see white privilege as an invisible package of unearned assets which I can count on cashing each day, but about which I was meant to remain oblivious. White privilege is like an invisible, weightless knapsack of special provisions, maps, passports, code books, visas, clothes, tools, and blank checks. Describing white privilege makes one newly accountable. As we in women's studies work to reveal male privilege and ask men to give up some of their power, so one who writes about having white privilege must ask, having described it, what will I do to lessen or end it? After I realized the extent to which men work from a base of unacknowledged privilege, I understood that much of their oppressiveness was unconscious. Then I remembered the frequent charges from women of color that white women whom they encounter are oppressive. I began to understand why we are justly seen as oppressive even when we don't see ourselves that way. I began to count the ways in which I enjoy unearned skin privilege and have been conditioned into oblivion about its existence. My schooling gave me no training in seeing myself as an oppressor, as an unfairly advantaged person, or as a participant in a damaged culture. I was taught to see myself as an individual whose moral state depended on her individual moral will. My schooling followed the pattern my colleague Elizabeth Minnick had pointed out. Whites are taught to think of their lives as morally neutral, normative, and average, and also ideal, so that when we work to benefit others, this is seen as work which will allow them to be more like us.
I'm Taryn, and this is me.
I'm Erin, and this is me.
In my opinion, the big picture, society as a whole, is full of injustice and hypocrisy. The double standards still capable of going on today show the potential that human beings have to be naturally ignorant and closed-minded. This doesn't give me too much hope for society, and worries me that a world in which we all not only coexist but actually accept each other is nothing but a pipe dream. The hypocrisy of society blows my mind. The matrix of domination in regards to social structure makes me sick.
Would you call it fear or taking the easy way out? Will you judge her for her decision, or will you be empathetic? This is not her trying to protect not only her but his reputation as well. This is life and death. There is no gray area this time, only black and white. She can live or she can die. What would you have done?
In determining who has the most power, you need to weigh in someone's race, gender, class, and sexuality. Most people will overlook someone and not even bother to take them seriously if they happen to be different in 1 out of 4 of these categories. For example, 2 white middle-class males are running for political position. One has a family, a wife, and 2 kids. The other has a partner of the same sex that has been with him for the past 15 years. When people become aware of this, he will no longer be taken seriously in most eyes. He will no longer be a respectable political figure with intelligent and insightful views or solutions for the community. He will be the enemy or perhaps the opposite side of the spectrum. He could even turn into the poster child for gay rights.
I looked into her eyes as her voice began to tremble. She is so young and beautiful, I cannot even imagine what could possibly be so dark behind her green eyes. What could worry her so much that tears well up in her eyes as the words begin to roll from her mouth? She is usually smiling with her friends all around her. This is another side, a side she hides from everyone. She does it well, for she has even fooled me.
Either way you look at it, his sexual orientation, something he is upfront with and not ashamed of because it is the norm for him, will be illuminated in the spotlight. It will define him, and people will focus on his sexuality rather than focusing on his political views. He will become the other. I sometimes think it's entertaining that people are so juvenile and afraid of the abnormal, but mostly it infuriates me. I'm not one to go with the crowd, and I've been judged for it. The concept of normal is something I'll never understand. Who decides what it is, and where is it set in stone? In a world with so many people, cultures, and ways of life so diverse, how does the white middle-class heterosexual male become America's norm?
Abortion. It is a heavy word, a heavy thought, a heavy burden. She is worn down and tells me the battle she fights within every day. Every day she is reminded of what she had to do, what she did not want to do. She told me when she took the test, her heart was racing, the room began to spin, and when she read the word pregnant, a wave of joy rushed through her body. Like a sudden ray of sun had just warmed her inside and out. She had forgotten the one obstacle which she'd feared to face in the future. She runs a high risk of falling to an ectopic pregnancy again.
The issue of race is an even bigger double standard. Yes, we have a black president now, but that's ultimately what will define him. Regardless of anything important or beneficial he does for this country during his term, he will always mostly be remembered in history as the first black president of the United States. Why does it have to be about that? Why does the skin color have to set him apart from all the other presidents?
The only option she was given by her doctor was abortion. She thought about it all day. It weighed her mind like an